Hey y'all, so this is what I'm gonna be piddling with today. I bought this and a couple other bikes a year or so ago I bought this one for parts. I can say that I hope this wasn't being ridden when all that damage there happened. Somebody wound up getting hurt pretty bad. It's pretty mangled. Thing looks like it got run over, which I'm sure is the case. It's a Yamaha QT-50. I've got a running Yamaha QT-50, so I figured I could use some of the drivetrain parts or whatever. This thing has been abandoned outside for a long time. It's beyond salvage, realistically. I mean, the fenders are shot, the motor may be shot, wheels are rotted, frame's bent, frame's got rust holes in it. Front wheels are shot, fenders, everything here is just mangled and destroyed. Cables are dry rotted. I mean, it's in bad shape. So I normally would never part out something, but this thing's just a little too far gone. On a positive note, all the wiring is intact and the motor and cases seem to be okay. I got this set up on my motorcycle stand yesterday, and I was going to start parting it out, but really I'm just going to pull a few bits off and hopefully the motor's okay. What I did do already is I pulled the plug out of it. When I tried to kick it over and move the kickstart, it wouldn't move, but typically the rear brake pads lock up on old motorcycles when they're parked for a long time. Front one's locked up. The back one was locked up, but what I already did is I took off the adjuster nut on the rear brake and the rear wheel turns. So that then allowed me to see if the engine would move with the kickstart, which it would just barely budge, but it wouldn't turn over. So pulled the plug out, squirted a bunch of penetrating oil in it, took this side cover off, and with a wrench on the flywheel nut, I was able to get it to turn just a little. So I soaked it in the cylinder and around the mag there with penetrating oil, and I got the motor to spin over. At first it was pretty snug, then I was able to get it to kick over fairly well. The wiring on this is mostly intact, so since I am parting this out, I guess I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get the motor to fire. I'm going to have to hot wire it. It's missing a key. I'm going to have to break into there and find some wiring, see if I can hot wire it, see if I can get spark. I'll do a compression check. I've been letting it sit overnight with penetrating oil. If it's got probably 70-80 psi, it's got enough compression to start. So this thing's been sitting in the elements with the carburetor wide open. So I'll probably, if I get spark, probably have to pop that carburetor off of there and clean it out. Maybe pour a little gas in it. But I'm just gonna set you up and follow along. I mean, I'd like to know whether this motor is junk or not, or what is or isn't usable before I pull it all apart. So while it's on the bike and wired up, now's the time to do it. So I'm gonna set you up and see what happens. This might be boring and might be a waste of time, and we'll find out together. Hey y'all, so probably the first thing I'm gonna do is do a compression check on this thing, see if it's got enough pressure to even fool trying to start. I think it does. It'll blow my finger off there pretty quick. Feels like it's got plenty to start, which I was actually surprised with. Is there are just leaves just packed in this thing. Everything is just, plastic's just baked, dry rotted. It's clearly been sitting outside for a couple of decades probably. So I'm gonna see if I can wedge this compression tester in there. May or may not work well. Let's see. This compression tester leaks a little bit on the rubber boot on the end, so the actual compression is probably slightly higher than what I'm going to get here. Kicks like it's got it. Just under 90. For a dry kick, that's probably enough to light off if I can get spark to it. And fuel, of course. Go ahead and pull the side cover off. I already pulled a couple of screws out yesterday. Just pull the rust back here behind it. These are just plastic covers. I would have expected metal. That's why it's deteriorated so bad. Leafs out of the way. So this is 17 millimeter on the crank here. Turns over real easy just with the ratchet. So, rings could be kind of loose. When I first started to break it over yesterday, this was full of debris. The cylinder had a little bit of stuff in it, but it turns over pretty easily now, and it has compression. So, I've kind of gone over the wiring a little bit. It looks to mostly be intact. I may have to do some Googling in between shooting and research how to hotwire it if any of this wiring is to the point where it can't be used. I'm going to try to take the cover off of the switch assembly up here, so I'm going to back you up a little bit for that. Try to get the cover off, hotwire the switch. This could be kind of difficult with everything just smashed and trashed here. The wiring cover here that I think I can get off. I think I'm just going to cut this cable out of the way. See if I can bend this handlebar back a little. Don't think so. Golly. That might be enough. Worry about cutting that cable, it's already cut. Alright. Yeah, that's how long it's been sitting. Just snap the cables right in half. At a minimum, I can get some engine parts stuff out of this thing. Enough to get my money back. It's got an intact carburetor on it. You can get $50 out of those used. Wiring in here is in a little better shape. It's all intact. Don't look like there's any missing components. Let's see if I can get to the mounting screw for this. I think there's just one. Alright, let me go get a ring. Beyond the point of salvage. I mean, anything can technically be saved, but you can buy these little machines for $300–400. Around here they pop up, you know, in essentially complete intact condition, not destroyed. By the time you got done replacing all the cables and everything that's gone bad in this bike, especially with the holes in the frame, it's just not worth it. See? Shear dried off. No surprise there. Here, see if there's another screw. Get my light, I can't see in there very well. Ah, there it is. Then there's virtually no chance that I can get in there to get it off with all the wiring in here. I'm gonna have to pull the handlebars off to get in there to get to that one. Which, probably not gonna fool with. So this is the ignition wire harness. Okay. So, gonna see if I can get the headlight off. Could be a bit of a challenge with this bar folded across the front. Probably just gonna have to bend that out of the way. Oh, holy crap. All right. Should be enough. Yeah, I sure hope somebody wasn't riding this when this thing crashed. Or when it got crashed, I should say. Let's see, any of my JIS bits. Shouldn't be using the Phillips number 2 bit on these bikes. Little Asian bikes take special JIS bit, which you can get on eBay. This is sold by Wits End. It's 3 different sizes of JIS insert bits. They kind of look from a distance like a Phillips, but they are not. They'll fit a lot tighter on the screws. Another thing you need to invest in is an impact driver. You're going to be working on old motorcycles like this. It's coming. One of my favorite things to do is restore and fiddle with old motorcycles, scooters. I'm actually looking at a bike I'm real excited about. I just got to go pick it up, really. It's a 1972 Triumph. Belongs to my wife's uncle. My wife's dad was killed on a motorcycle 15 years ago or so. And he had an old Triumph when he was younger. So his brother, guy that owns a Triumph currently, he wants to sell it. He's in his 70s and he would prefer to keep it in the family, so he's going to give me a really good deal on it. It's a pretty clean bike. I'm really excited about getting it. I'll give you all a look-see of that one as soon as it shows up. We're going to go get it. Alright, this should be my ignition wiring. That's headlight wiring. I think the red wire or the black and red wires kill switch type setup. Probably gonna get to hear me ramble on this one a little bit. I did a little research and apparently either the red wire or the black and red wire can be removed and or otherwise modified to allow you to crank the bike, start it. These things have a weird start sequence. It's got a start position on the key, which will allow you to start the bike. I think it provides a hotter spark, but it won't allow you to actually ride it. It won't allow you to rev it past 800 or 900 RPM. You have to switch it to the run position after the motor started. It's kind of goofy, but I don't know, other than a hotter spark, I don't know what the purpose of that would be. Where is... Probably going to take some fiddling to try to figure out how to get this thing kind of sort of scabbed together enough where it might see if it'll start. I'm not optimistic that it will, but I'm recording it anyways just in case. Oh, where'd the plug? Plugs not good either. Hey, it sparks. Darn. Oh, now it don't. Hold it for a second. That was a short-lived experience. Sure, I would do that for 2 seconds and not do it again. Probably all it took to explode whatever electrical component was nearest the end of a service life when I kicked it over. Okay, so wonder why it would just spark for a split second and be done. Perhaps we can abandon that for a second. Quite frankly, it's my only option at this point. I believe the CDI unit. Alright, let me go pop some stuff off my other bike. Good news, my parts bike had 2 of the components. I'm just going to temporarily swap them both in there and see if maybe it makes a difference with either one of them. Okay. Why you never throw anything away. And also why my wife hates me. Have a habit of keeping things around. I'm stupid. Looking up the bad one, or the possible bad one, don't I? Yes, I'm an idiot. Okay. Alrighty then, we've got units. Not hopeful. Could be something inside of the cover there, and I'm not going that far in depth just to see if the motor will start. Fairly confident it's got compressions. Mechanically, I think it's probably okay. And nothing. So, I'm going to eliminate that from the equation. Okay. Parked up the wrong tree. Sometimes you got to park up the wrong tree. After fumbling around with this for a while and still having the same problem of my a very intermittent spark. Every once in a while I'd kick it and it would spark for like a split second and then wouldn't do it again. So I fumbled with some of the wires. I mean, wires are a little bit, every connection is rusty and nasty. The electrical components are suspect. All the plastic connectors look like this. I think my spark is grounding out. So after doing some research, I basically wired straight from the stator assembly directly to the CDI unit. So this should come in handy for anybody that's got one of these that don't have a key or having trouble with spark, can't figure out what's going on. If you wire it up the way I'm fixing to tell you, and everything in the stator is in good shape, and your CDI unit is in good shape, and your coil is in good shape, it will fire. It will not have a kill switch. You'll have to disconnect it with your by disconnecting one of your wires. But basically, disconnect your pigtail from your stator, which is here, and you unpin your wires except for your white and your blue. So you take your CDI unit, your controller right here, and you unpin some of those wires. I'm going to tell you the colors you go to. It's basically color to color for the most part. Black wire with the red stripe from your stator directly to the black wire with the red stripe on your CDI unit. Next one is your white wire. The colors are faded off real bad. Your white wire with the red stripe from your stator goes straight to your white wire with the red stripe on your CDI. Then you take your black wire from the stator straight to black wire from your CDI unit. Lastly, take the orange wire from your CDI straight to ignition coil. So if, like I said, your coil is good, your stator is good, your CDI unit is good, it will spark. So just make sure none of your connections, these are temporary. I didn't want to break, I didn't want to cut up the factory wiring. So I just made a little jumper wire bullet connector to a female. And I just set this all up with my spring-loaded clamp, so I didn't have to cut any of the factory ends off. So that's just what these two things are here. I didn't want to rip up factory wiring apart. Anyways, so you wire it up like that, and we'll go test for a spark. Like I said, that'll give you a good spark. It'll bypass all the wiring in the bike with the exception of the CDI unit, the coil, and your stator stuff. So that way you can at least confirm, like I'm doing, if this motor is actually capable of firing. You can eliminate a whole lot of other stuff from the equation. So I got the machine turned around so we can kind of see any puffs of smoke that happen to come out of it. Got my spark plug here. Fairly clean. What I'm going to do is go on the other side and see, I'm about out of gas out of everything. Basically, I'm going to squirt something that burns into that cylinder. I think I've got some ether in my boat. I'll go grab it real quick. Alright, so I got my awesome Super Tech starting fluid. Was looking for that a few days ago. Yeah, I know this is a 2-stroke. I just want to see if I get a puff out of it. I pulled the carburetor off because the inlet of it was full of debris. So I'm gonna, on a positive note, it looks pretty clean in here. So I'm gonna clean out the throat there. Just a tiny bit of leaves stuck to the oil. I'm gonna give it just a sniff of this, and I'm gonna bet you $100 that it fires. So, to be honest with you, I'm kind of surprised I've gotten any results out of this thing. Usually when something like this is parked, it's in bad shape, but this one, clearly a catastrophic incident, we'll call it. Sludge out. So I'm kind of leaning towards this. The reason this thing being parked was a crash. If that is the case, somebody got effed up pretty bad. You're right. The inside of the intake looks surprisingly clean. As long as this sat outside, it's shocking that I could get the thing to fire. The stator wasn't all rusted up. Not to mention the air box being open. The thing didn't get a bunch of crap in the engine. I'm gonna give it a sniff right in the intake. I don't know what RPM it's gonna run at. Might have to set the carb back on it. We'll just give it a shot. It might fire without the plug or without the carb on it. No farts. I don't smell no ether on the plug. Make sure I'm still getting some spark. Oh yeah. I'm gonna go the direct injection route. The carburetor off. It's a massive amount of air entering it. Severely diluting the fuel mixture. Alright, bet it farts. Or not. Or not. Plug's dry. Suppose the next step will be pop the bowl off the carburetor and pop that dude on there. It'll be my most reliable means of doing this. Feel the pulse in there. Okay, so plan B of sorts. I'm going to spray this carburetor out a little bit, brake cleaner. And no moving on the slide. Let's see. Easy into this rubber. Oh, okay, we'll get in there. Typical 2-stroke thing, gummy. Hasn't moved in a long time. Okay, now it moves. It appears to be idle screw set all the way in. Oh yes, that's a beauty. That's nasty. Just feast your eyes on that yumminess. I'll bring you back in a minute. Looks like I got some cleaning to do. Pretty sure that right there ceased to be gas a long time ago. Well, it cleaned up reasonably well. Good enough that it shouldn't get any crap in the car. That was dumb. I could have dropped that right off the table. Reached over there and set it across from the wrong side. No way I could have stopped it if it started to fall. That needle and float was stuck like crazy. Okay. Next step is going to be knocking the pin out. Alright, so this bike is a case study in not parking your machines with fuel in the boils. The needle and seat is hopelessly stuck in this carburetor, and you can't remove the needle assembly and I forget what you call it, the part it sets into. You can't take it out. So I am just going to fill the bowl, screw it on, and that should be adequate for just seeing if the thing will fire. Probably run for 20 or 30 seconds on a bowl of fuel, I guess. Okay, she's in reasonably level. The slide I couldn't get to go all the way down either. Fairly certain that the passageway that the needle goes down into is compromised. Tighten this up. I suppose the exhaust could also be plugged. It has clearly sat outside for a couple decades. Alright, let's reload and see if she'll fart again. Well, see if she'll fart, period. It hasn't done it yet. That sounded promising. Hey! Started, I think. Or it's trying to. Wish I could get fuel into the thing. Wish I could get the slide down. Keep it idle. I think it ran. So I kicked and it just free spun for a second. I think that was a run. Huh. Cable for the choke was snapped in half. She's a dandy. Such a shame these things sat crap in it. If they'd just run it out of gas, the thing would never have needed what I've had to do to it so far. See if I can manually push the... That's better. Blow a little more crap out of this carby. How many of y'all squirt yourself right in the eyeballs with these stupid little red straws when they pop off? I've done it a lot. And a little oil in the slide. Back in. Give her a little sippy. Okay, that's a big sippy. Give her a drink. I've about gotten to the limit of how much time I want to spend piddling with this. I had planned on having this bike tore down already today, but I honestly didn't plan on it starting either, or making it coming anywhere close to starting. Ready to, it's like 5 o'clock on a Sunday. I'm ready to tear this thing down and be done. Go in the house. A million things to do this week. I really haven't had a day off in probably 7 or 8 weeks. End up working, or at least piddling, 7 days a week. I used to do it because I had to when I first opened up shop. Busy enough, made dumb choices a few times, overbid, or underbid rather, a bunch of jobs, and created a situation where I had to donate a lot of free labor and time and effort. Lots of fun. Now I work 7 days a week by choice. Well, I got a carby back on it. When I kicked it and I thought it started earlier, it was like ring, but it was super quiet, so I don't know. Not impressing myself. I guess that decided to go ahead and come apart. Not getting much gas. Strong compression. Wonder if it's got a bad. I'll check for spark again. Its plug boot shattered. I don't want to do it by hand. Good spark still. She ain't wanting to play. She ain't wanting to do it, guys. Now I'm getting tired of playing with it. Springy thingy. Drop the springy thingy. Drop the V springy thingy. Drop that. Feeling nothing out in the exhaust. Well, I reckon at this stage I will see if I can break the bolts off here on the bottom of the main. Dang. Turned easy. Should be dealing with the exhaust restriction. Getting tired of playing with the QT-50 on Sunday. Alright. I gave up singing a long time ago. I put my hand on the back, there was absolutely no sign of a puff of any kind on the tailpipe. It's little enough anyways. About the size of a fly pecker. Dunno. Dunno. Good. Sounds better. Hey. Sounds a lot better. Rest my case. Motor is a pump. If something is plugged, it cannot pump. All right then. That was fun. Kind of. If you learned anything, you learned how to hot wire a QT-50 or I think PW-50, either one, motor, and bypass just everything that you don't need. Hopefully you learned that. And also that an exhaust system restriction will cause your air pump motor not to work. And third, and possibly most important, that you should never leave your carburetor sitting with gas in it for 20 years. And I suppose you shouldn't get hit by a car or something like that either. Now I can tear this stupid thing all apart. Really, there's not much I'm going to salvage other than the engine. Really not much more I want to fool with. I know it'll fire and run. The carburetor is just useless. All the passageways are full of crap. Needle is hopelessly stuck. Can't get a consistent fuel level. It'll run for just a second and the fuel level get low and cut out. Can't move the throttle, no choke. So it's really as far as I'm feeling like taking this. I'm just gonna save probably the drive assembly, drive shaft, the engine, pull the electronics off, maybe cut the hubs out of the spokes and some of the wiring bits, and that's it. She's gonna go to be with Jesus. Anyways, thank you for following along, and like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.